Hi everyone, it's Alice, and today we are doing a TBR filled with cozy, magical books. One of my favorite things in summer is when it rains, which I know, people love the summer and they love the sun and all of that, but what I love in life is to be cozy. And it's really difficult to get cozy in the summer, especially when it's really hot outside. And I love that, like, the rain when it comes, it really gives you like a break from it, and I find it super cozy. And even if it is still warm, I just find it to be like peak weather in the summer. As long as I get to be inside when it's raining, I guess, and also that it doesn't rain too much so that it floods, but you know what I mean. Anyways, the point is I've gathered up a stack of books that I'm gonna keep over the summer and see if I can get to some of them and have some cozy days in between all of the sun and the hot weather. And obviously I can read these anytime, it doesn't need to rain, but I just like having them in a stack, and I'm gonna put them somewhere where I can see them, otherwise I tend to forget about them. The first one that I have is a graphic novel that I'm really looking forward to. It's The Firelight Apprentice by Bree Paulsen, and this will be my third book by this author. I've read two others, the Garlic ones, which are some of my favorites, so I'm really looking forward to reading this one as well. It's fantasy, and it says it's set in a city powered by magic, whatever that means, and it's recovering from a war, and we're meeting two sisters, the eldest of which is starting to grow concerned with the youngest, like, developing magical powers, and she realizes that the youngest needs to be sent away to be trained, but she doesn't really know where to send her. She doesn't really want to send her to the king for some reason. And so instead, I think the younger sister ends up becoming an apprentice with like a traveling group of magicians. That's all I really know, and I think it sounds like a great setup, and I'm so excited to see the world and the magic in here. The art also looks amazing, and one of the things that I loved so much about the Garlic books was how the characters were drawn and their expressions. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that in here as well. And I just think it's gonna be like sweet and heartwarming. And now that I'm looking at the cover, maybe a little bit spooky because there's a skull on here. I don't really know, but I'm sure it's going to be magical. The second one I have is a prequel to a book that I loved. It's Bookshops and Bonedust by Travis Baldree, and this is set before the events of Legends and Lattes, and we're following the same main character while she's still in her like adventure and mercenary days. But I think what happens in this book is that she gets injured, and because of that she has to go to this small sleepy beach town to recuperate. I think she spends a lot of her time in this town in this little bookshop, which sounds amazing, and she's worried that she's gonna get really bored, but it seems like there's more beneath the surface of this sleepy town than you would think. I saw mention of like, I think a grumpy gnome and a summer fling and some skeletons. I don't really know how it all ties together, but it sounds interesting. Legends and Lattes felt like just a warm hug to me, so I'm really excited to read something else by this author. And I did love the main character in Legends and Lattes, so it'll be interesting to see her before everything that happens in that book. And obviously, this setting sounds really good, and especially the bookshop. Like, you can't really go wrong with that. Then we have a very cute looking translated book. It's The Full Moon Coffee Shop by Mai Mochizuki, which just the title of this immediately made me want to read it, and this cover is obviously great, like with the cats. A cat will get me every time. This is set in Kyoto, I think, where we have this mysterious coffee shop that has no fixed location and no fixed opening hours. It seems like it just appears to people who need it when they're at like a crossroad in their lives. And you can go in there and it's run by talking cats, and the cats will offer you like cake and coffee and tea and stuff like that, but they will also like read your charts and offer you wisdom, and it just sounds so magical. I usually really love reading these kinds of books. I feel like especially these kinds of translated books, they have a certain quality to them that I can't quite put my finger on, but I love it. Next, we have a sequel to a book that I read 1 or 2 years ago now, and I really need to continue on in the series. It's The House Witch 2. And in this series, it's like a fantasy romance series. We're following a house witch in the first book who becomes the royal chef to the royal family, and he has a lot of secrets in the beginning, and like he rubs everyone the wrong way, but throughout the book he becomes friends with people, and eventually he gets quite involved with the royal family and the other people working in the castle. The first book sort of ended with quite a lot of loose threads that I would like to pick up in this one and see what happens with it. And there's a lot going on, at least in the first book. There's some political stuff, and there's some romance, and there's some intrigue, but it is cozy fantasy, so it never feels like too complicated or too overwhelming. And I remember in the first book there was a lot of like cozy and domestic things, like cooking and just a lot of nice moments. And then we have some magical creatures in here, and it's all very manageable, even though there are quite a lot of characters in here and quite a lot going on. And I'm excited to see where these characters go in this. I think there's 3 books in the series. Maybe there's more, but I know there's at least one more. And it's just very cozy. And I do feel like this cover sort of, it represents the book well, I think. Obviously, I haven't read this one, but the first one has a very similar cover, and this is very much the vibe. Then we have a book that I picked up last fall that loads of you told me I absolutely need to read. It's Shady Hollow by Juneau, which is a cozy mystery set in a village of woodland creatures. And obviously, it doesn't get much cozier than that. Our main character that we're following in here is a fox who is a reporter, and she's a newcomer to the village, and she catches wind of a death that she thinks might actually be a murder. And then as she investigates, it becomes clear that like there's some stuff going on in this village that she's stirring up, and someone is determined to keep her from like finding out what actually happened. Just the setup of this sounds amazing, and apparently there is a moose in here running a coffee shop, which I'm dying to read about. Like that's exactly what I want to read about. And I feel like we can't go wrong with a mystery solving fox as a main character. Like that sounds amazing. Another translated book I have is this one. It's The Lantern of Lost Memories by Sanaka Hiiragi, and I got this not too long ago because again I really like these kinds of translated books, and this just sounded a little bit different because a lot of these kinds of books are set in like bookshops and coffee shops, which is of course great, but this one is set in a magical photo studio, which just sounded really interesting and a little different. The thing that makes this photo studio magical is that it's for people who have just died, and they can go to this studio before they pass on to the afterlife, and they get to see a memory from their lives. And I think, I'm not entirely sure how it works, if they get to actually like time travel into the memory or they just get to see it. I'm not sure, but I think the setup of the book is that we meet several people who go to this studio, and I just really like these kinds of books, and it does sound very magical. It's probably going to be a little bit sad as well, but yeah, I really like these kinds of books. Speaking of sort of sweet and heartwarming books and translated books, I have another one. This is What You Are Looking For Is in the Library by Michiko Aoyama, and this one is set in a library, and we're following a librarian who has like a special ability to know exactly what the library visitors need to read in order to like change their lives, which is an excellent skill. Again, I think it's the kind of thing where we meet several people who go to this library and they're all at crossroads in their lives, and I just love the idea of reading about how a book can change your life, because it really can. I also like that it's set in a library, like that's an amazing setting. Based on this cover though, I am wondering if there is a cat in this book, which I feel like even if the cat is not a big deal, it would add something to it. I actually didn't realize that this is partly illustrated. That's also really cool. Then we have another one that I picked up quite recently. It's Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. And this is a book that I've been meaning to read for quite some time because I love the movie adaptation of this. But I'm always a little bit on the fence about reading books after I've seen the movie. Like, sometimes it doesn't work that well for me, but I love the movie of this so much that I really want to give this book a go because it's so magical and whimsical. If you don't know, we follow a main character in here named Sophie, who one day she just sort of accidentally attracts the attention of this witch who curses her. And the curse is basically that she appears to be an old lady, and the story is all about her trying to get rid of this curse, and that eventually takes her to the House of the Wizard Howl. I'm really excited to read this and see how it not only differs from the movie, but also how it's the same. And that's one of the reasons I decided that I actually wanted to give this a go, is that I would like to read about the characters in the movie because you get to know them in a different way, and I just love them so much. So I'm excited to see that. This also has some illustrations in the beginning of each chapter, and I just think this is going to be lovely. I love the movie so much. It's one of my favorite movies. So I am a little bit nervous as well, but I think it's going to be good. Next, we have a book that came out earlier this year. It's Greenteeth by Molly O'Neill. And not only does the story sound great, but I love this cover. Like, it's a little bit different. And I think I like it so much because green is my favorite color. And I also like these little flowers. Anyways, this story is about a monster who lives in a lake, and usually she eats everything that comes into the lake, but one day a witch is thrown into it, and the monster decides there's something different about this woman, and so she decides to save her instead. And I think they become friends and go on some sort of magical quest to defeat like an evil thing. I don't really know, but it sounds like a lot of fun. I love books that blend adventure and magic, and that's kind of what this sounds like. And it also sounds like it's a book about unlikely friendship, which, I mean, the friendship between a monster and a witch. Maybe it's not that unlikely, actually. But it sounds nice, and I'm wondering what kind of quest they go on. It does say that they need to defeat an evil that threatens the very soul of Britain. So it seems like a big deal. This is also one of those books that I just have a feeling about. Like, I'm trying not to go into it with too high expectations, but I think I'm gonna love it. I just have that feeling. And I actually also have that same feeling with this next book. It's The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong, which just sounds magical and really nice and kind of heartwarming, and it also just looks lovely. We're following a fortune teller in here who seems to be quite lonely, and she travels around and her only friend is her mule. And she, like, it says that she only tells small fortunes because big fortunes have big consequences, so I'm guessing she's been burned in the past. But throughout this book, she travels around and she eventually makes friends. There's like a reformed thief, a baker, and a slightly magical cat, which, again, a cat will always get me. And it just sounds so sweet, and yeah, it says that the main character is fleeing from a troubled past, and I'm wondering what's that all about, and I don't know. I just have a really good feeling about it. Second to last, we have another one that I've wanted to read for a while and I've heard a lot of good things about. It's Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson, which tells the story of this girl who has lived her whole life on this island, and she's never left, and then I think her father goes missing and he goes on a sea voyage and he doesn't come back. And so she decides to go looking for him, and I think she stows away on a ship to sort of get off the island or something. I think she needs to seek out a sorceress to find her father or something. And there's mention of pirates. And I don't really know, but it just sounds really good. And I've heard so many good things about this. And this is often recommended as a cozy fantasy book, so I'm excited to read it. I've also never read anything from this author, so it'll be interesting to see like the writing style and everything. And I think it just sounds really cozy. I wonder if there's a map in here. There's no map. I thought that I saw one because I saw this, but this is also pretty. But yeah, I think this is going to be really nice. And I haven't read a lot of books with pirates in it, so I'm very intrigued about that. Lastly, we have this one. This is Dreadful by Caitlin Rozakis. And this sounds kind of silly, but like good silly. It follows a man who wakes up in an evil wizard's workshop with no eyebrows and no memory of how he got there. And he's freaking out because he thinks that the evil wizard is going to come back and like do something to him, but then I think it turns out that he is the evil wizard, and he can't remember like how he got there or what happened or how he became so evil. He has a castle full of goblins and a princess locked up in a cell. And so he's in a bit of a situation, and I think he decides to sort of pretend like he hasn't lost his memory and is trying to figure out what has happened, but it sounds like there's a lot going on, and it just sounds like so much fun. I've seen this recommended to fans of T. Kingfisher, and as you know, I'm a huge fan of T. Kingfisher, so that makes me very excited. And it just makes me laugh so hard that he wakes up with no eyebrows. Like, I just think it's so funny, and if that's the tone of this, I think I'm gonna love it. That was the last book in my stack, though, which means that we've reached the end of this video. Now I just need a rainy day to come by so that I can get cozy, although I'll probably end up reading some of these over the summer anyway, because I want cozy vibes all of the time. Now, I would love to know if you've read any of these books and what you thought, and also if you have any cozy books on your TBR that you're excited to read. I would love to hear about it. As always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!